worst sentence you ever wrote?
It's the worst sentence I ever wrote. You know, this sort of doesn't count, but 1985, my first real book, was a book that I wrote with Kim Newman, and it was called Ghastly Beyond Belief. And Ghastly Beyond Belief was my compilation with Kim of the worst quotes from fantasy and science fiction and horror that we could find. He did movies, and I did books. So I actually started out my career by typing out sentences like from Night of the Crabs. I think my two favorite sentences from Night of the Crabs were, "What a beautiful night this would be," he thought, as he walked past the barbed wire that surrounded the war memorial, "if it weren't for the threat of giant crabs." And of course, but even that pale, my very favorite sentence was, he wasn't going to leave Janice Williams alone that night, crabs or no crabs. So while I didn't originate that, I did type it.
Have you experienced rejection or failure as a writer, and if so, how do you handle it?
Yeah. One of the things that happens, especially when you're starting out, is you write stories and you send them out. In my head, as a young man, whenever I would send out a story, what I would expect to have happen was the following morning, a limo would show up at my house, and people would get out of it, and they would say, "This is yours, we loved your story so much. You never have to work again. Just thank you for writing the story which we're going to publish, and make sure everybody in the whole world reads." And instead, 6 weeks later, it would come back, the little slip, saying, "Not quite right for us," whatever. It was okay. What you do is, I did two different things. What I did as a very young man was get things back and go, either I'm not very good, which I do not choose to believe, or that probably was kind of true, or I'm just doing this wrong, and I need to find out how this all works. So that was the point where I became a journalist, and I became a journalist specializing in publishing, in books, and I found out how it all worked, and 2 months later had sold 2 books, and then got a quote from Muddy Waters, which I stuck to my typewriter, which tells you how long ago this was. And it just said, "Don't let your mouth write no check your tail can't cash." That was my quote, and I went, how did I do it? I just sold 2 books, I'd never written a book. What am I doing? And got through it, my tail cashed those checks, but really, I kind of dealt with it by just vowing to myself that, I would try and write things that were so brilliant that nobody could reject them. And now, of course, I'm in this horrible other situation, which is, I worry that nobody's going to tell me if I write a dud short story. Because everyone's going to go, "Well, we've got a Neil Gaiman short story. Well, put it on the cover of the book."
I'll tell you.
You would too.
All right, next question.
Go
Who
for
was
it.
your favorite teacher?
Who was my favorite teacher? Probably Mr. Hayes.
A maths teacher?
Bill Hayes. No, he was an English teacher, of course. And he was better than any other teacher I ever had because he gave me money. I would have been about 10 going on 11, something like that. And he said, "Did you ever read Gone with the Wind?" I said, "No." He said, "I'll give you 10 shillings if you read Gone with the Wind." I said, "What?" And I read Gone with the Wind over the next week, staying up late. And have no idea to this day. When I finished it, I went home and said, "Finished it." And we chatted about it for a while and gave me 10 shillings, which was a lot of money. No idea why. But it absolutely moved him from the ranks of pretty good teachers to absolutely my favorite teacher ever. That, you know, the idea, and I thought, if only this catches on amongst teachers. They need to read books. I'm there. I'm so there.
Outside of writing, what accomplishment are you most proud of?
I don't know if it's technically an accomplishment, but I'm proudest of my kids. I have 3 amazing kids. And they baffle me. And they baffle me in really cool ways. Isn't it embarrassing when that happens? If there's any consolation, it normally happens to me up here. And then it destroys the mic as well. So I'm trying to pretend it's not me and the thing's like bzz, bzz. No, I love it. Mike, my oldest, is a software engineer at Google. And we have these great conversations because I'll say to him, "So, tell me, what are you doing?" I'll say, "Well, Dad, it's very easy. Rock. And it's exactly like, you know, the adults in the Charlie Brown cartoon. And he'll get to the end and I'll say, "Well, I didn't quite get that. Can you run me through some more of it?" He said, "Well, you understand that Google is you know, our primary mission is search engines." And I'll say, "Yes." He said, "Well, you understand that Python is a programming language?" And I'll go, "Yes." And I'll go, "Well, what?" And Holly is a milliner, and she does hats. So I have a daughter who is a milliner.
Great hats.
And then there's Maddie, and she's at Wake Forest, and she's awesome. I have no idea what she's going to be doing. She's interning on Teen Vogue this summer, which I suspect is going to be the very soon I will be having the female equivalent of the, "What are you doing?" "Well, Dad, what? Okay, you understand that Armani is a fashion house?" "Yes, I got that." "Well, what?
Okay, we all want to know, how is the American Gods TV show coming along?
We're waiting currently to hear back from HBO. It's a sort of like very slow game of tennis. You know, I write a script, a pilot script, I give it to them. They wait a long time for me, then it goes to them, then we wait a long time for them, and then they come back with notes, and I go in, redo it. It's been a really interesting thing, because starting out, the first pilot script that I wrote for them, I think I got much too into the idea of going, I can do all the stuff I didn't do in the book. So I started it like, you know, you were half an hour into the thing before you even got to prison. I got to do the whole, you got to watch Shadow and the bank robbery that goes wrong and how it goes wrong and all of that. So everything, and actually it was much more, the process of doing the thing has been much more HBO going, can you make it more like the book? And you go, "Yeah, I already wrote that. Look at all this cool new stuff I wrote." "Yeah, you can do that flashback later on, but starting it where the book starts, it's good." So we got to that point, and right now I finished a script, and we're now waiting for their notes, which I believe come in this week, so I'll find out.
Good. After 30 years of success, do you still feel doubt?
Yeah. I mean, how can you not? And it hasn't been 30 years of success. There's been things that worked and things that didn't. There are, short stories that did not work as well as you hoped they would. There are things that you write that just don't quite work. And I'm, you know what I'm like. I am an author, and as such, I'm a weird mixture of appalling arrogance and absolute self-doubt and humility, and as like a sort of nightmarish layer cake. Because I will do things to Jen of going, I don't think it's pretty good. What do you think? And she'll say, well, maybe you could change that. I would say, change that! Why, this is why that is like that.
Never mind. Okay, Neil, you're a huge supporter of libraries, and we appreciate that. My mom was a librarian. Did you ever fantasize about being a librarian, a hot one?
No, because in my head, hot librarians are, apart from anything else, of a very different gender from me. No, I mean, the two professions that I don't know that I fantasized about, but that I could actually imagine wanting when I was a kid growing up, were English teacher and librarian. They were the things that, they were the people I loved, they were the people I respected, and they were the things that I was good at. I didn't know that I'd be good at being an English teacher or a librarian, but when I was 7, all of my books in alphabetical order. Serious, the amount of worry that I gave to Roger Lancelin Green over whether that man belonged in the L's or the G's. What? What are you, Roger Lancelin Green? Why are you writing these books of tales of the Norsemen? Why can't you just be Roger Green or Roger Lancelin? I would know where to put you. I put him in the L's and later discovered that was wrong. No, I could absolutely have been a librarian. I loved books. Librarians tell me never to tell people this, because you go to libraries now and they have all these signs about no unaccompanied children, and they say, do not tell people this, they will use this as daycare. But I talked my parents into dropping me off on their way to work in my summer holidays at the local library, and that was where they would drop me off. Sometimes I would take sandwiches, which I would go out when I got hungry into the parking lot, eat my sandwiches, and then go back in. And mostly, I'd just not even think about eating and just be there, reading my way through the children's library, which you could do in alphabetical order. It was great. And then I finished the children's library, and I was about 12, I'd done it all. And so I started on the adult library and discovered that you could not do that in alphabetical order. It got really dull. Very early in the A's, why do I have to read this? But then I started getting much more selective.
Do you prefer writing books geared toward a specific age? If so, which age group do you prefer? Adult, children's, young adult?
I like writing, mostly, I don't think about age group. Mostly I just think, what would I like to read? Part of that, I think, is from having been a dad. If you were a father for kids for a long time, and my kids had, about 12-year age gap between them, which was kind of fun. It means that you're going to spend about 20 years reading books aloud. And you rapidly realize there is no such thing as a book just for kids, because every book for kids is going to have to be read aloud by somebody of your age. And
And the trouble with books for little kids is they have to be read over and over and over. So you start feeling very, very sorry for, you want to do the best thing you can for little kids. Knowing that it may be 5 times a night for months, I could still recite the entirety of a book called Catch the Red Bus, in which a family of bears go to the seaside on a number of differently coloured transportation. So no, I really don't. I like writing stories. I tend to worry more about what I've written. You know, sometimes things turn up in your head and you go, that is obviously a story for kids or whatever, and at that point I'm trying to write it mostly for me when I was that age. I try and write the thing that I would have liked. And bearing in mind that adults are going to have to read them too.
What prompted your All Hallows read? Such a wonderful idea. I loved participating. Would love to hear the origin story.
All Hallows Read, which is a thing that I came up with a few years ago and which has kind of caught on, I'm really, really proud of, happened on a plane. And it was about the week after they'd started putting wireless Wi-Fi on planes. And I was on a plane from Los Angeles to Minneapolis. And I had time to kill. And I'm on the internet. And we were heading up towards Halloween. And it wasn't even like there was anything that tipped it over. I just suddenly thought, well, wouldn't it be an interesting idea if people gave each other scary books at Halloween? I just love the idea of, I thought there aren't enough festivals that involve giving books. There aren't any. And Halloween would be a really good one. So I just said on the internet, let's have this. What would you call it? I asked on Twitter, and dozens of replies came in from people all over the world, and All Hallows Read just seemed like the best one. So I said, thank you, person who invented All Hallows Read. That's what it's now called. And got home, registered the website, and just encouraged it. And what was nice was librarians loved the idea, bookshops loved the idea, Stephen King loved the idea. I have no idea why Stephen King thought it would be a good thing to give people scary books, but he got behind it. So, suddenly it got traction, and it's been growing, and each year there's more stuff happening. We did HarperCollins did this fantastic poster competition, beautiful poster that came out last year from Harper's for All Hallows Read. But what I love is it isn't a Harper-specific thing, it's just spread. And that was the idea. I just think more people should read more books. It's pretty, like I wanted an excuse.
Here's this question about your writing process. When writing, how similar is your process through different projects? Is each book its own discovery, or do you work through them all in a similar way?
No. Each book is definitely its own discovery. Each book, when I finished American Gods, I remember talking to Gene Wolfe, who is one of my heroes, and I think one of the great living, probably one of the greatest living American writers. And I said, Gene, I think I figured out how to write a novel. And he looked at me with infinite pity. And he said, Neil, you never learn how to write a novel. You just learn how to write the novel you're on. Which, the next time I sat down to write a novel, I discovered, yeah, it's true. Same with Doctor Who episodes. You never learn how to write one, you just learn how to write the one you're on. And I like that, actually. I think it's good. It's a learning process. If I knew how to do it, it's one reason why I tend, I always mean to write sequels. People say, why don't you write sequels? Neil Gaiman does not write sequels. And I go, well, actually, it's not like I'm standing up going, I shall never write a sequel. There are sequels I'd love to write. But I'm much more likely to go, oh, shiny, when confronted by something I have no idea how to do. Find something over here that I really do know how to do, and I figured it out, I learned how to do it the last time, and everybody loved it, and there are people waiting. And then over here is something I have no idea what it is, and nobody's waiting for it. I don't even think anybody's really going to like it. I will do that thing. Because that's cool, and it's new.
What have you learned from listening to Jack Benny? Has he influenced your writing, and in what way?
I learned from listening to Jack Benny. I learned an awful lot about America from about 1932 through to 1955. The Jack Benny radio shows they're all out there right now on MP3. They're really good. Actually, that's not true. They get good around 1942. At which point, he's gone through 3 sets of writers at that point. And finally he gets in some sort of pretty cool writers who are, so they're as good as he is. What did I learn? I don't know. I wish I could say something like, well, timing. But it's not actually true. What have I learned from Kevin? I don't know. I have actually started a story that's sort of based around Jack Benny. I've taken a fictionalized version of Jack Benny and the people around him and started writing it. And it's something I have notebooks with things that exist in a kind of a half-life. Fortunately, the milk was one of those for a while. There's a thing called Pirate Stew, which is which is probably the next children's picture book, which I've been working on for years. Every now and then I'll write a little bit more of it. And the Jack Benny Project is one of those.
Well, I know we have to go because the room needs to be used, but I do want to say that there are a number of questions in here which are not really a question, and what these cards say is, thank you, Neil.
Oh.